Why would a popular baker known for her epic cookies and treats have a love-hate relationship with cookies? You're going to find out. During this conversation, we're going to cruise through HTX and all the way to Rosenberg to Anna's Confections. We're going to talk with Anna about her baking journey, about that love-hate relationship with sugar cookies, and the meticulous process of decorating them. She's also going to talk about the collaboration between her and her cake decorator. She mentioned some of the bizarre cake requests and more. By the way, I thoroughly enjoyed the aesthetic of recording in her bakery, which happens to be just a couple blocks away from a railroad track. If you enjoyed this episode as much as I did putting it together for you, please share with your family and friends and hit that subscribe button on your favorite podcast platform.
Hi, I'm Ed Sheeran. This is Bruno Mars.
Hey, it's Katy Perry.
This is your man Flo Rida with Freddie Cruz.
This is AJ Mitchell with Freddie Cruz.
Freddie Cruz.
Freddie Cruz.
Tell your Chico pick Mr. 305 and you already know what it is.
My name is Freddie, and it's time to cruise through HTX. What was the first thing you ever baked?
So my mom was a baker growing up. She did all these cakes for fundraisers and auctions and stuff, so I'm sure it was a cake. But we did bake a lot of brownies and stuff. But a few years ago, when my parents opened a restaurant, I did their desserts. I would make pies and sugar cookies, and that's kind of how I got started for me as a baker.
What is your favorite thing to bake?
It's a love-hate relationship, sugar cookies. I could sit there for hours, literally like 15, 16 hours a day.
Yeah.
My body doesn't like it, but I obviously do. I worked 150 hours last week on sugar cookies.
Whoa.
And I clocked in this morning with 88 hours.
Sugar cookies alone.
Yeah, that's really all I do here is sugar cookies.
Okay, well,
It's crazy.
I want to ask you about something else, but the sugar cookies thing. So it's a love-hate because you have to taste test them
just because I literally love like decorating cookies.
Okay.
But it's so hard on my body. Like I was riding on some before you got here and my whole arm like kind of went numb because it's so tedious, everything's so like binded up. It's just very hard physically on me.
Because you want to get it right. And
I'm so particular on sugar cookies. If I don't like the way the icing's sitting, if I don't like the way the lines are, I'll scrape it and redo it.
But you can just, because it's, when you're painting one of these beautiful cookies, I guess the paint is so fresh that you can just wipe it off in it. It's
just all icing. Everything I do is with icing. We'll do some paint or airbrush, but all the details and stuff is just either a flood icing or a hard icing, kind of like thicker than like toothpaste. So when you're squeezing it and it's very thin, it's just a lot of squeezing all day.
So it doesn't come out clean, and you have to start over, or
if the icing doesn't, if it's like a colored icing, and I don't like the lines that it's giving me, or if it's like got some kind of like marbling in there, or if I don't like the way I did the outline, if it's not like perfectly to the edge of the cookie, I have to scrap it and do it again.
Trash it. And just, see, this is where I would be like 700-pound baker guy, because it's like, oh, well, I messed it up. Well, I'm not going to throw the cookie away because it'd be a waste of a good cookie, so I'm just going to eat everything.
Honestly, we don't eat a lot of this stuff.
Get out.
Something I will eat at the end of the week if it's there, banana pudding. Is how I met you.
Yes, and that's what I wanted to ask you about, because, okay, so this is one of your friends or family member?
The banana pudding?
Yeah, told me about it. I think that was you or her.
It was me.
It was you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I heard someone say pudding or the strawberry pudding, and I said 100% banana pudding.
Yeah.
It's the best. So you bought the banana pudding.
Yes, and I'm glad I did. Do you put crack in that?
No, we don't. It's kind of a mix-up of my mom's recipe and what I grew up doing. And so I kind of tweaked it a little bit for my own space.
Yeah.
And everyone seems to really love it.
What is the ratio of bananas versus cookies versus whipped cream versus actual pudding?
We probably do almost a full, maybe like a half banana. And we just line the bottom with Nilla wafers.
Yeah.
Everything is, I don't know if it really makes a difference, but like actual name brand stuff, I don't like to use the cheap Nilla wafers because they're like crackers. And so we just kind of line everything, and it's kind of like equal parts all the way up.
But there's something just different about yours versus everybody else's.
I think it's the consistency of the pudding. It's kind of like a mousse.
Okay.
And it's not like a loose pudding.
Okay.
But that's the only thing I could think of is the actual pudding itself, because everything else is just whipped topping, bananas, and Nilla wafers.
The simplicity.
Yeah, it's so simple.
Yeah. But my goodness, it tastes like you were up till 3. You were up since 3 a.m. making the big.
It's probably our most sold item out of the cold case.
Really? Okay. So you do the sugar cookies. They're decorated. It's hard on your hands. So what about these beautiful cakes that people see on your website and on your social media channels?
So I have a awesome cake decorator. She kind of like base coats everything for me. She ices all the cakes, and I usually get to come in and sprinkle with the little details. So any of the fondant work, piping is the only thing that I do on the cakes. She's grown so much and has learned so much since she's been working with me. She does probably 90% of the cakes.
What is the most bizarre request you've gotten?
Most bizarre.
Seems like you do mostly kids stuff.
We do a lot of kids stuff. We've done a couple naughty cakes for bachelorette parties and things like that, or guy cakes where they want covered in like weed and cigars and things like that.
Yeah.
Those are kind of weird. I don't know what the most bizarre is. I feel like we had this conversation the other day, and I can't remember what it was. But we do a lot of kids, or like just simple things for women where they're like clean and classic.
What do you wish you learned when you first went from home baker to having a storefront?
That would be on the business side. I ran it like I was still a home baker, and it took a long time to catch up to being a business, like a brick and mortar business owner. Mm-hmm. I actually kind of fell into this whole baking stuff in general. I actually went to school for skincare to be an esthetician. I did that for a couple years, and then I was baking. I guess the thing that I baked most out of this is my crack brownies. This is kind of my oldest dessert.
I'm sorry, you said crack brownies?
Yes,
without
brownies.
Crack, without actual crack, for
crack.
clarification, everybody.
But once you have one, it's like addicting. Like you want to come back, whether it's cold in the case or the regular crack brownie. I've been making those since I worked at H-E-B for our parties and things like that. Anytime we'd go somewhere, people were like, "Can you bring your crack brownies?" And so I baked a little bit, cupcakes and things like that out of when I wasn't a baker. But when my parents opened their restaurant in Hungerford, my mom stopped baking cakes altogether. And so we had a family friend ask me to bake a cake. And I'm like, I literally have never done this before. So I made her a cake. She posted it on Instagram, on Facebook. And I would say within 5 to 6 months, I had a business. 4 or 5 cakes a week within 6 months.
Wow.
Yeah. And I did at home for, 7 or 8 years. And my husband finally kicked me out because I was doing about 10 to 12 cakes and 15 to 20 dozen sugar cookies every week by myself.
And it might take up space in the house.
Yes. I had a whole flex room that called my cake room. But once it started coming out into the kitchen, into the hallways, I had massive cake racks everywhere, cake pans everywhere. Half my pantry was baking stuff. My husband was like, okay, I think it's time you find a commercial space because this is too much.
You are colonizing our home, Anna.
Yeah. We had a bakery sign outside of our house so people knew.
Oh, wow.
When they were coming to pick up which house it was. It was crazy, but I really enjoyed it then because I had a little more freedom then.
Yeah.
Than this place.
This place, which by the way is a sweet spot. I mean,
Yes.
downtown Rosenberg.
I first opened my first location in 2020, March 4th.
Oh, everyone's favorite year.
2 weeks before the world shut down, and freaking out because I just signed this lease. We had to shut down for like 2 months. Nice train.
The train is beautiful, but you know, it's like a nice aesthetic, the live
Yeah.
recording and stuff. Sure that never bothers you while you're baking.
I don't even notice it. It's like 10 of them come by a day. And so I opened that space just to kind of like get out of my house. And it wasn't planning on doing a storefront, and we would have people come in and ask for things. And so we kind of opened like the walk-in stuff. And it was great for a little bit, but then last year it kind of like was like, okay, I think you need to close, just go back to customs because it was so slow. But there was like no walk-in traffic, right? It was kind of on the corner on Avenue D over there. You had to be coming to me to be able to find it or stop or whatever. But I actually begged for this place for years. I wanted it so bad. He closed the month after I signed my lease.
Kind of a dumb question. Who was here? Was it another baker or?
So there's 2 other businesses here. He closed February 2020, the old bakery that used to be here.
Okay.
It's what it originally was.
Gotcha.
And then a coffee shop came in, and then a great pizza, Gino's, was here for 2 years, I think.
Oh, wow.
A year, something like that. And it was just, I mean, it's not a restaurant. It's kind of small.
Yeah.
So Anna told me they were leaving, who was the Gino's owner. And I begged Renee. I was like, you've got to let me have this space. If I don't, I'm done. I'm shutting down. I was like, I need to be that. This needs to be my home.
And you made it happen.
And
Yeah.
it finally worked out for us. And it's been night and day difference.
Before we wrap up the interview, Anna, I got to know, we are just a couple weeks away from Valentine's Day, a little more than a couple of weeks, but let's say somebody wants to do something for their Valentine that's out of the ordinary. We obviously want them to visit the bakery, Anna's Confections in Rosenberg. But what if somebody also wanted to make something homemade? What is the most important ingredient they need to keep in mind?
I think the best homemade treats are always like chocolate covered strawberries. You can kind of have fun with them. They could be simple, but they're always delicious. And I love the almond bark from HB or whatever. It's called almond bark. It's a chocolate bark. It melts really easily. And like I said, you can dip the strawberries and they're just delicious. Or you can use it for like cookies. If you're making cookies, kind of drizzle a little chocolate or anything like that.
Fantastic. Anna'sConfections.com.
So we have a Facebook page, mostly Facebook and Instagram. We do have a website, but I would say visit us on Facebook and Instagram, Anna's Confections, to be able to find our stuff.
Gotcha. Anna, I've been saying Anna. Anna,
Yeah.
Anna's Confections.
It's fine.
Thank you so much for coming by the podcast. Thank you for letting me come by the
problem.
bakery to talk with you on the podcast.
Absolutely.